Time Machine Control Media. We're about to bring back Aristotle from the time period when he was alive.
What year is this?
We have special guest Aristotle today to talk about the crucial role his thinking played in medieval times. Aristotle was born in 384 BC in Stagira, a small town in the northern coast of Greece. Aristotle's thinking was dominant and his influence was prevalent throughout the times. He was the greatest student of Plato, even established his own school called the Lyceum in Athens. Crucial to the Christian and Judeo-Islamic religions, and because of their large political pull throughout the Middle Ages, his political and other beliefs were spread throughout Europe without any issue. Welcome, Aristotle.
Thank you for having me here.
We're glad to have you on Time Machine Media. How was your trip?
It was astounding and quite overwhelming.
City-states are a prominent contribution to Western civilization. Can you tell us a little bit more about your city-states and their infrastructures?
Yes, city-states are created because of one of four reasons. It is made of four parts. The Constitution, which is the ordering in which the inhabitants of the city-state conduct themselves as a community. Firstly, the citizens and people within and the resource the community has. I'm going to read that again. Firstly, the citizens and people within and the resource the community has. The Constitution, not always a written document, but a principle by which the people live by. The city-state must have a cause they are working together toward, creating the need for a ruler who creates order in the city-state. The ruler is like a shipbuilder or weaver who turns their material into a finished product.
Okay, wow. Very interesting. However, how much of an impact did that have on Western society?
Well, I'll allow my good friend King Philip II tell of the impact.
The Book of Politics was one of the most important books in the history of mankind, setting the groundwork for city-state structures to be used all throughout medieval times. Aristocracies, oligarchies, and monarchies are the forms of government created. Essentially, monarchies are for private benefit. Oligarchies are governed by minorities in polity, which is a democracy-type style of government. His ideas laid the foundation for the styles of government throughout Western Europe.
So, Aristotle, what is the most important skill you feel in a leader for those aspiring to run for a city-state?
The leader has to be a great communicator, the understanding rhetoric. It is important for them to understand rhetoric because as a ruler of city-state, the individual has to understand how to persuade the people to move towards one cause. Church priests must use rhetoric in order to communicate their message to the congregation better.
Okay, and as a super genius, it comes with the territory that you have a bunch of haters, right?
Yes.
So I understand that the elites during the 13th century tried to have all of your works silenced or removed. That's bogus.
The condemnation of 1210, I tried to have my philosophies and beliefs be removed from society. This, however, did not work, and by 1270, the ban was ineffective. Thankfully, Albertus Magnus was one of the most important medieval scholars to apply for philosophies to Christian thought. He interpreted and systematized many of my works. Because of his efforts, there were a larger Christian acceptance of my philosophies in Western Europe.
All right. And what about education and thinking? Did you have any influence in those fields?
Well, during the Middle Ages, I was considered undoubtedly one of the most profound philosophers because of my work on logic and natural philosophy. This became the basis of education in medieval universities for almost 5 entire centuries. The focus went from monastic disciplines and training priests to topics including grammar, geometry, and rhetoric. There is a transition between monastic school systems to the first medieval universities where many of my works are included. The new specialized system gave birth to higher studies such as law, medicine, philosophy, and more. University preachers were becoming more and more intrigued by rhetorical devices and used them in their sermons.
All right, well, we'd like to thank you for being smart, first off, Aristotle, and we'd like to thank you for coming on Time Management Media Company's show today. Thanks for coming.
I'd like to thank you, the Time Machine Company, to having me here.
Aristotle was the most influential philosopher throughout the Middle Ages. Because of his influence within the church, his ideas were able to spread considering the church's immense power during the time. He set up political systems that were used throughout Western Europe for a long time. He laid the foundation for higher education, which allowed for the development of universities. There have been many extraordinary people throughout history, and they affect their cultures and societies. However, their work eventually will die out just to never be referenced or talked about again. This is not the case with Aristotle. He's referred to as the philosopher. When he was lost toward the Western world, his effect was all the while being felt in Muslim-involved religions, where Jews and Muslims interpreted and remarked upon his works. Despite the fact that the church, along with Western world overall, has been losing the Greco-Roman works of art that once educated and edified the West, it appears to be obvious that Aristotle keeps on influencing the advanced world from governmental issues to instruction and even philosophy. At last, the impact of Aristotle upon the Middle Ages and upon the church since the beginning can't be denied. The 13th century is one of the most crucial periods for understanding Aristotle. There was a lot of energy and effort put into understanding his work. Although it was condemned and restricted, the interest of Aristotle grew, fueled by powerful Christian theologians who were involved in the widespread efforts to appropriate Aristotle's work. Although rhetoric wasn't emphasized until late into the Middle Ages, it was important once unveiled. Rhetoric became part of almost all communication, from letters people wrote, the orders a king gave, the way preachers preached, and many other forms. This changed the way people communicated on a day-to-day basis. In conclusion, this topic matters to historians because Aristotle laid the foundations of Western civilization, and his insights still dictate essential features of the modern world today as well as the Middle Ages. Thank you.
He was the greatest studio of Plato. Wow, Plato. We're gonna edit that out, right?
Yeah, we can.